ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। A recommendation before we start the class. We are planning to have this class for the next 11 days. When you are attending this class, it is recommended that you keep a notebook and a pencil with you, so that as we keep referring the points, you can make a note of it then and there. Of course, the explanations will be coming along with the points, in fact, but before you go for those things, you would be requiring the points for you to do the self-assessment. When you go back to do your self-assessment, at that point of time, you will be requiring these points for you to recollect and remember. And from memory, if you are planning to do it, I can be sure it is not possible. So safe one is to have a. You don't have to make a note word to word. Word to word, recording is not required. But whenever we refer a particular point, I'll try my best to give the point and then explain. Give the point and then explain. I'll try my best to maintain this, this discipline. But then I can't guarantee that, but I'll try my best. So when I'm giving the point, it's better you make a note of it, so that in you, when you are trying to recollect or when you are trying to do a self-assessment, it will be useful for you. So now coming to this idea, this personality chart. See, there are very many different ways of analyzing the human personality. Now here, when we say personality, we are talking about human, right? This is being done by people in different ways, depending upon the context from the idea from where they are coming. Say, for example, one way of analyzing that personality is to categorize them as introvert and extroverts. One way of saying is, you can tell people, say he is an introverted person and he is an extroverted person. Meaning, introverted meaning a person who is preferring to be alone, not that he is scared of social. This is what many people misunderstand. Introverted person doesn't have a fear of socialization, not that he cannot socialize with people. Given a choice, he would not. Whereas an extroverted person, this is one way of understanding personality. And then we have another way of understanding a personality is to say a person is aggressive, passive. Is an aggressive personality, is a passive personality. And then we say good and bad also. So then what happens, sir? He is aggressively good person and aggressively bad person, passively good person and passively bad person. So we have 4 types of personalities we get based on these 2 factors. So this is another way of understanding. I'm not going into the details of it because that's not the context on which we are going to discuss. But for those who have never heard of these words, aggressive means a person who employs his thinking and does whatever he is doing in life. Passive is a person who goes predominantly on emotion. So we call as a passive person, non-thinking type. And then thinking to satisfy their selfish ends. That is called aggressive bad. Thinking employed for the welfare of everyone is called as aggressive good. Then passive good and passive bad. An easy way of understanding is, in Mahabharata we understand that very easily. Aggressive good, Krishna. Aggressive bad, Shakuni. Passive good, Pandavas. Passive bad, Kauravas. That's all. It becomes easy for you to understand in that from that angle. Of course, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritties of those things. Well, this is the basic way of analyzing the human personality. Then you have another way of analyzing a human personality. To analyze him in different compartments, 7 different areas we calculate. And say a person is materialistic person, sensual person, active, emotional, rational, religious, spiritual. This is another way of analyzing the human personality. Now, however, in whatever way you do, we do all this analysis keeping something as a reference point. First question we ask is, for what you are going to do the personality analysis? Explain that first. Once you define that, then it would be easier for us to identify which method is better for us, which is easier for us to do. Otherwise, it would not be possible for us to say in what context we are going to be doing. So the first thing we are doing here, what we have to realize is, we are doing this analysis with an agenda in mind. I have an agenda in my mind. Based on that agenda, I will classify people. Classification of personalities will come into it. Right now, the agenda is what? Those who are infected, suspected to be infected, and infected. And then in that way, what is it, sir? Infected, asymptomatic, and then symptomatic. And then what? We classify them as primary, secondary. So all this is a very different way of analyzing. So every analysis we do of all the people around the world, always there is a reference point. For this entire analysis, the reference point, the demographical analysis, the people, classifications, all those things is based on the virus infection. We wanted to study the virus infection. For that, we are doing the whole thing. Without giving that reference point, if I start analyzing the whole thing, there is no meaning. We can't understand for what we are going to do. Why I'm saying this to you all is, you have the option to switch off and walk out right now. If you say, Ishwaran, that is not my agenda of studying human personality. I thought you are going to do a personality analysis so that I can identify what sort of a person I am dealing with. How can I deal with those people? Is this person like that type, or A type, or X type, or Y type? So that based on that, I can maintain that relationship appropriate with those people. If that is your agenda, then you can leave now itself. Because that's not what we are going to discuss. It will be a redundant time. You will be wasting your time here. Right. And I've been just told, we are already hit number 100, I think. And already, we are getting messages from people, sir, you're not able to log in. So be little more charitable to people too. The agenda is not those things. Therefore, we are not going to be doing the analysis of introverted, extroverted, nor are we going to be analyzing in this side, nor we are going to be analyzing people based on from the psychology point of view. None of those things. Here we are going to do this analysis only for one reason. If you say that I am interested for evolution, growth, self-realization, then this analysis would be of some use, because evolution means only one thing. Remember this. From the beginning till the end, evolution means constant correction. Correction and correction and correction and correction is called evolution. I go on correcting. Now, unless the person is committed for correction, willing to be corrected, that is called a Shishya, we say. Shishya means the person who has the willingness for correction. Only then he can be taught. That is why a child can learn a language quickly, whereas an old man cannot learn quickly. Why? The child is willing for correction. It doesn't feel uncomfortable. If it doesn't know a meaning for a word, it has no reservation in asking. What is that? What is this? What is this? What is this? The child will constantly ask because it has no problem. Whereas an adult has the weakness of what? If somebody comes and corrects, and particularly if the correction were to be happening to the subtler dimensions of life, resistance is maximum for that. See, someone comes and looks at you, you walk into their house, they look at you and say, hey, what's there in the cheek? Something is there. It's black. What happened? Or the person comes and says, you're looking sick. What happened? When a person asks you, you're looking sick, what happened to you? You feel how internally? Oh, this man has so much of concern about me. He loves me so much. He is so worried about me so much. Imagine the same person comes and tells you, hey, what a sick mind you have. What happens immediately? When he says you have a sick body, what do we do? When he says there is a mark in the cheek, what do? We tell him thank you. Wipe and go. Whereas when a person there to come and tell you there is something to be corrected at your mind level, at your thought level, at your emotion, what happens to us? This is where the difference comes into picture. Evolution means if you say that I am interested in self-development, I am interested in evolution, I am interested in self-realization, I am interested in spiritual, I am interested in religious. Yeah, of course, these days we don't use the word religion because we have a very, to say spiritual is very fashionable today. So to say I'm a religious person looks for all of us what? You're all, old type fellows. You're all modern people. Both you don't understand. Neither spiritual you understand, nor religion you understand. Remember this. You say, if you are interested in any one of these things, if you say, then you have to develop this quality called I am willing to be corrected. Best way is to do self-correction. Unfortunately, all of us don't have the measuring scale for us to make the correction. If you say that, yes, I have to correct myself, which means I have to identify my fault, isn't it? On what basis you will identify a fault? All of us will say, if I ask, what is wrong in you? Every one of us can give a list, at least one or two. If I say what all good about you, you will give a huge list. Okay. That's not a big problem for all of us. At best, what is everybody will say what? I am a short-tempered person, sir. I've seen people telling, I don't like someone lying to me. Tell them, show me one human being in this world who says, I like somebody lying to me. And we all think as though it is such a great quality. There's nothing. What is the reference point? Now, when we say, I have to correct myself, I'm going to be making a correction, I have to change. When you say, the question is not about just the willingness for correction. A pertinent question to be asked is, how do you know that this is the actual fault? Many of us will say, this is the mistake of my life. That is wrong. I shouldn't have. Now, on what basis you are saying that is the actual fault? What is the reference you have for that? That is a fundamental question we ask. That is where the scriptures come and give us an assistance. That is where Guru will come. If you have a Guru in your life, better. Suppose if we say, no, sir, I don't have a person with me, then catch hold of the scriptures. The scriptures will give you, but then there is a problem. If you have a Guru, there is a problem. If you are not having a Guru, if you are going to take only the scripture, again there is another type of a problem. Another problem you will face there. If you have a Guru, the problem is what? You'll say correct. Only that we will not follow. We will follow whatever the Guru's instruction. Which one we will follow? Anything which is convenient for me, I will follow. Anything which is not convenient for me, what will I do? Whether I will make corrections of what sort of corrections I will be following. I would say I'll take those corrections as cosmetic corrections. The corrections we will do at what level? At the action level, behavior level, conduct level. The character level corrections will not happen. But what he is expecting is a character change, not a conduct, not your behavioral change. Behavioral corrections and all is not his problem. Behavioral correction is not his issue. His issue is your character. How does your character gets in? What defines your character? This is when you go to a Guru for correction, this is one issue we have. Suppose if you say, therefore, sir, I will go to scripture, then the entire onus is on your part. Because the scriptures will not give you direction. Scriptures will give you the map. The city map will be given in the scriptures. Now you have to locate where you are standing. Then you have to locate what is the destination, and then you have to draw the path. When you go to a Guru, this problem is not there. It's like, I don't know the route. I go to a strange city. I go there and ask a man, hey, how do I reach to this place? How can I reach there? How do I go? He says, go straight, take a left. You will find one. You will find the circle. Leave that circle. Second circle, you go and take a right. That's where this place is. Now I don't have to worry about anything else. All that I have to do is what? Just follow what he's saying. So clear direction I can get. But when I am buying the road map, the city map when I am buying, that will not give me specific direction. Now here what we have to do is, the scriptures will give you that reference point. The onus is on you to work out. That is why I said you make a note. When you make a note, it will be easier for you. So you have this idea of what is this personality. Now the agenda here for us is evolution, knowledge, realization. And the process through which you are going to achieve that is called religion. And it's a very, very mysterious process. Religion is a mysterious process where you use your equipments to trace the path. Like how you do the maze, mouse is here, cheese is there. You have to trace the path. And I have seen many people, how they do it, sir. They do reverse. Instead of mouse going to the cheese, they do from cheese to mouse. After that, they will make it. It's very, after seeing, like in mathematics, we used to do that. We flip to the last page, we see the answer. If this is the answer, then this must be the step. Now, you will never learn mathematics in that way. You can never learn that path. Remember this. It's not possible. You have to trace the steps. Now here, religion is a process of tracing the step back. Tracing. In the tracing, what happens? It traces back and dissolves in the process. And that's where it is so difficult for us to understand. Where it gets in, it dissolves itself in the effort. That's why religion becomes a mysterious process. That's why one master defines what is that spiritual perfection. He says spiritual perfection is where the observer is observed. I say, what? How can observer be observed? Now I am observing you. Now what I am doing? Okay, now you are all there. I am observing you. Now I am the observer and you are the observed. Now what does he say? Now I have to start observing myself. Then what happens? I have to stand apart from myself and observe myself. Then there is one me observed, another me observer. Then again apply the same philosophy. What is the spiritual status means what? Spiritual perfection means when the observer becomes observed. Now the first me who is observing you, who is observed by the second me, becomes observer. Now what I have to do now? I have to create a third me to observe the second me. Only then this perfection is possible now. If you keep on going like this, where will you land up, sir? Infinite regression. Where are you going to it? See, like Buddha gives another, each one of them, when they talk about that perfection, we just can't understand what they are talking about. Any dimension they speak. First time you look at it, it will look like as though it's a very, very pregnant statement. What a beautiful statement. Observer is observed. Wow, superb here. What a fantastic construction. If you think a little, you will understand what? You have not understood anything in that. Now what happens? Buddha says, what is perfection? He says, nirvana. What is nirvana? A fellow asked Buddha, what is nirvana? What is samsara and what is nirvana? He says, samsara has no beginning. It has an end. Nirvana has a beginning, no end. Can you understand the statement? Statement is a beautiful statement. Statement wise, what is it? Nirvana is what? It has a beginning, there is no end to it. Whereas samsara is what? There is no beginning, but there is an end to it. Basic thinking is what? If something has a beginning, how can that not have an end? If something has no beginning, how can there be end to it? Now what happens to the whole statement? You see, there is no way that we can capture intellectually what is that state of evolution, what is that state of perfection. That ultimate perfection can never be captured by our thinking. You can't conceive it. Any amount of explanation given, it will always remain as impossible. Intellect can never understand that. Intellect will never be able to conceptualize it. Then how are we to gain that knowledge? If I can never understand that, immediately the thinking will say what? Intellect will say what? Hey, anything that I cannot understand, anything that I cannot conceive, can you say it doesn't exist? Can that be rational? Can that be logical? I can't understand it. Therefore, it doesn't exist. No, that is not being rational at all. That's not thinking at all. Just because I cannot understand, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That is what happened to people in the past. In the past, they all thought what? It is the sun that is rotating the earth. This is what people thought, no, in the past. They could not understand. Actually, it is the earth that is going around the sun. It's not the other way around. They couldn't understand that. Now, the facts of life, remember, is not always available to your intellectual comprehension. That's a basic thing we need to understand. Don't think all the facts of life are available for your comprehension. There are so many facts beyond the comprehension of average intelligence of a human being. In this scenario, how are we to define where I am going wrong? On what basis am I to define this is where my mistake is? Locating the mistake. That is where the scriptures come and give a fantastic assistance. It gives us a comprehensive analysis and understanding about what is a human personality. There are domains of understanding. There are certain things which I know today. There are certain things which I don't know. So I have a circle of knowledge and I have a circle of ignorance. You're all with me. There are two circles. Always it will appear as what? That knowledge of circle smaller and the knowledge of ignorance bigger. Look at the paradox here. Very interesting. As I put an effort to gain more and more knowledge, what does it mean? If my knowledge circle is enhancing, what it should be happening? What is happening is the knowledge is occupying, intruding, capturing the territories of ignorance. So what was ignorance in the past, through my effort, being converted into the field of knowledge. The field of ignorance converted into field of knowledge. Field of ignorance converted to field of knowledge. Knowledge. That means what? Slowly my circle of knowledge is increasing and occupying the area of ignorance. I am conquering. And tragically, you know what happens to those people? The man who has the widest circle of knowledge says what? His circle of ignorance is bigger. The person who has the smallest circle of knowledge says what? I know more. See, that's what Einstein says, no? What is my knowledge compared to my ignorance? That fellow says, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't understand. I don't. We are all the calculations, all that what we are working is all what? Arbitration only. Don't think there is precision to any calculation that I am making. It's all more or less. That's about it. There is a huge difference. Now he says, I don't know anything. The one who knows maximum says, I don't know anything. The one who knows very minimum says what? I know everything. Looks paradoxical, no? Isn't it? How this is happening? Factually, if knowledge is increasing means I should feel what? Hey, I have become more knowledgeable. But you see all those people in any field for that matter, whether you take the field of music or you take the field of sports or you take the field of science, you take the field of philosophy, you take any field for that matter. They say, no idea. A fellow who is, investing in stock market for last 25 years, you ask him, hey, do you understand stock market? He said, those things don't ask. You give me some money, I will invest on your name, get you profit. That's all. Don't ask me. I don't understand, he says. And he knows much more than the person who has. But how is it, sir? Why this paradox? How do you resolve this paradox? To resolve that paradox, how this paradox is getting created is where Vedanta comes and says, man, there is a third element existing in there, which is not recognized initially. Initially, when you are taking the baby steps, you don't recognize it. Only later you recognize it. What do you recognize? There is a third element. What is the third element, sir? Third element is there is a thing which exists beyond the domain of knowledge and the domain of ignorance. Something which you can never call as knowledge or call as ignorance. You cannot categorize that in knowledge domain, nor can you categorize that in ignorance domain. So objectively understanding both is not possible. Arriving, reaching to that phase, inquiring into that one, study of that one is called religion. Remember that. Now we have a concept. Religion means what? Am I doing? I am standing, I am sitting, I am going to the temple, I am doing this ritual or doing that ritual. You think I belong to this, you belong to this. That is not, please. Religion is a process of inquiry, process of attempting to understand, attempting to recognize the third element. The third element, which is beyond the domain of knowledge and ignorance, is where the subjective understanding is possible. This recognition can never happen through objective analysis. So straight away in religion, we say personality analysis means don't start analyzing the outside. You straight away start the analysis inside. That's how Vedanta starts. This inside analysis, when you go, what we realize is that I don't have that understanding of what is my true nature. What am I? See, somebody calls on the street, Ishwaran, I turn back. Isn't it Ishwaran just a name being given to me? 11th day, they gave name to me as Ishwaran. But for the first 10 days, I was there, no. When I was there for the first 10 days after my birth, it's not that I came, when I born itself, I came with Ishwaran. No. After 10 days, 11th day only, my father kept the name Ishwaran, I suppose. I don't remember. It's only heard. He keeps on. Now, what had happened now? Even if that fellow in the temple, he is standing there and saying, Ishwara, I turned around and asked him, yes, sir. He's an idiot. I didn't call you, man. I'm calling him. He says, what nonsense is that? Why? How that had happened, sir? Because of my constant association. I established a link between that name Ishwaran and myself. Today, even if I am fast asleep, somebody comes into the room and says, Ishwara, I wake up. That association has gone so deep, so solid, so strong, that that name had become me. Just that sound. What is name? Name is just the sound. That's all. Isn't it? What is that? That sound is you? Is it, no. The sound is not me. Then what are you? Then what are you? Then what are you? When you start making that inquiry, we realize, but I don't know what I am. That ignorance. There is the ignorance that exists in me. Ignorance of what? Not ignorance of physics. Ignorance of chemistry. Ignorance of medicine. No. Here we are discussing about the ignorance of what is me. That ignorance, Vedanta says, is the cause created an effect. Or that ignorance is expressing in you in three forms. That ignorance is what is creating the three temperaments, they say. One of the classical invention or the classical discovery of these people, these masters. Fascinating one. They say that has the ignorance of my real nature manifests as the three mental temperaments called Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Strictly speaking, this is not the way it is supposed to be pronounced. It is to be pronounced as Satvikam, Rajasam, Tamasam. Right. But since we are speaking in English, we are just using the word, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Now, these three mental temperaments. These three essential qualities of you is what is defining your personality today. Right? Not your real nature. What is expressed, what is there, what are you right now is not the real self. You don't know about it. We have no clue. Then what I am today, sir, what you are today is nothing but these three things: sattva, rajas, tamas. Now when we are discussing in terms of you, what is that you means here? All of us don't know anything about the self, the consciousness, Atman, Brahman, God, spirit. You can use any one of those terms. That aspect of it we don't know. I don't know about it. I don't know that aspect of me. Then what else I know about me? I can say what? This is me. Correct? This is what that person is. We say no. But do you really think this is what that person is? According to you. See, today the class would be little heavy, or maybe little confusing also. Right? Or irritating also. I don't know. Can be all three also put together. You got to bear with it. These three aspects: self, spirit, we don't know. Therefore, that is kept, we just keep it aside. I don't know about it, sir. Then what else we know about it? We say, yeah, I see this person. No, he's there. She's there. Do you think the body to be the person? According to you, the body is not the person. What is a proof? What is a proof you will have? Body is not the person for you. What is a proof? Very easy. Only one reason I will give you. There are many reasons. Now we don't go into those details now. How you are not the body and all, we don't have to go into that analysis now. But one reasoning is enough for us to immediately understand. When a person dies, you cry, no? Why? What do you say and cry? The body is there, but you fall on that body and cry. Why did you leave me and go? Why did you leave me and go? The body says what to you? You idiot, I'm here. No. If body were to have the capacity to talk independently, imagine what the body will say. You fool, I am here. No, what's your problem? You are the one who carry me and put me in the crematorium. You carry me and burn me. After that you say ayo, ayo means what? Is there any meaning in it? No, but still you say what? No, the person is not there. He is gone. She is gone. But the body is there. But still you say what? No, no, no. Which means, according to you, if body to be that person, you should not be crying. Right? But why do you cry? Why do you say he's not there, she is not there? Or it is not there also. Because people cry for death of dog also. When a dog dies, people cry. I say, ayo, he's gone, she's gone. They say, I say, what? For them, I say, body is there. No, what's the problem? They'll say, no, 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 I can't. No, no, no. This is not that person. Then what is the person? What is the real personality according to you? According to you, you don't know the self to be your real personality. According to you, you understand the body is not your real personality. I am repeating. For you, the self or the spirit, consciousness, Atman, Brahman is not the real personality. Why? You don't know. According to you, body is not the real personality. You know that, right? Then why do you value that body? This is a separate analysis. That's not our point right now. Right now, the focus is only this point. When you say personality, which one you are referring to? Me. When I say, I'm referring to what? I. I have to be corrected. I have to evolve. What is that I? That I cannot be referring to body. The I cannot be referring to self also. Both are deleted. Now, what is left out? What is left out is only your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, your likes and dislikes, your impulses, your thinking, your ideas, your ideologies, all put together. All that is what, sir? Only one thing, thoughts. All that collectively we will call in one unit as thoughts. Like your bones, your kidney, your liver, your brain, your eyes, your stomach, your blood, your fat, all put together we use one term, no? Body. Isn't it? Same way, all this collectively we put as one term. What is that one word for all that collectively, sir? We call it as thoughts. Those thoughts were of three different categories, they said. Those thoughts which defines your character, that emotions that define your character, the ideas that define your character, the beliefs that define your character, the values that you carry defines your character, not what you do. You see that? Remember this. But in life, always it will be working from angles. When people look at you, they will encounter first what you do. Remember this. When the world is meeting you, the world's first meeting point with you is what you are doing. That's why when you are looking for an alliance for your daughter, first thing you ask is what? What is the boy doing? Right. One fellow says he is a doctor. Another person is a driver. Which horoscope you will ask? Doctor's horoscope or driver's horoscope? I don't know about you people. I will ask only for doctor. If I have to see for my daughter, I will not ask for the driver. We will not look in terms of how good the doctor is, how good the driver is. He may be an excellent driver, and this fellow may be a lousy doctor. But still, world is going to judge, assess you, look at you based on what you are doing. This is what we call as conduct. Ethically speaking, we call it as conduct. What are you doing? How you are doing comes secondary. Those who are interacting with you on a regular basis, those who are transacting with you little closer when they come to the next level. There they start seeing how you do whatever you do. Not just follow what you do, how you do it. Then comes the third domain. Why you are doing whatever you are doing. Nobody will enter into that domain. No one can enter into that domain. Say, for example, I am teaching Vedanta. Right? To the world, when they look at me, what are you doing, Ishwaran? I say, I am teaching Vedanta. Immediately, they will form an opinion about me. Oh, they'll think something wrong with this fellow, or they may say, what a great service he is doing. It's a great work, commendable work, fantastic here. What you are doing is good. What I am doing, that's it. Then those who come little closer to me will say what? How my teaching is. They will not just define me based on that fact that I am just a teacher. No. How good a teacher is, or how lousy a teacher I am. How I am teaching. Not just the fact that I am just a teacher. No. When they come little closer, they will start looking at me in terms of how I do. But it's almost impossible for anybody to probe and get into that field of why I am teaching. Can anybody know? Imagine if I have to communicate to you that why I am doing, to whom I will communicate? How can I convince? How can you be sure about what I am saying? I can say that I am teaching, for what? This is the reason why I am teaching Vedanta to people. I can say that. But how you are going to be taking that as a real reason? I can fabricate a reason, no. If I am skillful in talking, in terms of communication, if I am skillful, I can provide an excellent reasoning to all of you and convince, why I am teaching Vedanta. All that it requires is what? A skill. It just demands a communication skill. That's about it. Why? The tragedy of life, always. This is the tragedy of life. Whole life, we are attempting to convince the world around us why we are doing whatever we are doing. The tragedy is the world can never enter into that domain. That why domain is available and accessible only to you. No outsider can enter. How much ever close they are to you. Your own life partner will not be able to enter into the domain. That is, even after 70 years, 30, 40 years of marriage, husband and wife fight, saying what? You don't understand, why I am saying, why I am doing. You don't understand why I am doing. I don't understand why I am doing. What is that fight all the time? All the fights happening in the relationships is only what, sir? Trying to convince the other person why I am doing whatever I am doing. All that we do is only that much. But what we are not realizing is why domain is not available for the world to get an access. Only you have an access to it. So what you should do now, sir? That why you are doing whatever you are doing, why that emotion, why that thinking, why that you value, why that why domain is what is analyzed in Vedanta and categorized that into 3 sections called Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Every dimension of your life were classified under these 3 categories. Sattva, in an easy way of understanding, is maturity. Sattva. Okay. If you take it, tamas you understand very easily. The sattva difficult for us because it's far away from us. Tamas is very close. At least to me, it's very easy to explain tamas. For me, sattva is a difficulty in all dimensions. Sattva is the only problem for me. Tamas is very easy. Rajas, a little effort I put in, I can explain. Sattva is a difficulty for us. So I say tamas, very easy. What does it say? Tamas is what? Means not reacting to the world. They don't react. That is called tamas. No reaction. Rajas means reaction. Why you react is because of your desire. Reactions based on desires, driven by desires. No reaction, tamas. Reaction to the world based on your desires is called rajas. Sattva is reacting to the world based on values. That is called sattva. So sattva, rajas, tamas. Sattva means maturity, poise, collected. Rajas, passion with agitation. Passion plus agitation is equal to rajas. Tamas, indifference and heedlessness. So first one we say is no reaction, reaction with desires, reaction with values. Second one, objectivity, maturity. Poise, you can put it as poise, it's easy. Rajas, passion plus agitation. Passionate activities plus agitation, that's what it means. Tamas means indifference, heedlessness. Your entire personality is only these three things. You are a combination of these three. In this, corrections means evolution means what? Evolution here means correction, means elimination of tamas and rajas, promotion of sattva. This effort is called spiritual, religious, evolutionary efforts. Now, if I have to do that effort, I need to know which area I am tamasic, where I am rajasic, where I am sattvic. Because the problem is, you are not going to be having that same throughout your life, in all dimensions of your life. There is a variations there. It expresses in a different way to different people in different proportion at different periods. So how are you going to fix it? Are you going to be fixing it based on arbitration? Yeah, I am predominantly tamasic, sir. On what basis you will say? You are okay. I am a very rajasic person. Like a lot of them, they say, tell about this personality. Immediately they say he's a short-tempered person. Short-tempered person. In a day or in a week, how many times he gets angry? Huh? 68 hours, sir. Delete all the sleeping hours. If you take in the waking hours, if he is awake for 40 hours, in that 40 hours, how many hours he has been angry? You will say what? Three times he got angry last week. The fellow in entire week got angry 3 times. You are calling that entire personality angry? Huh? Oh, he's a very charitable person. Why? Because in the traffic signal, he gave 10 rupees to one. I don't know. In Bangalore, we don't, you know that, no? 10 rupee coin you give to a beggar in Bangalore, they will not take. I tried actually. I tried with 3-4 beggars. I gave them 10 rupee coin. She didn't realize I'm giving, 10 rupee coin. One lady took and went away. She came back and knocked the door, the car. I pulled that window down. She says, keep it. I said, it's 10 rupee coin. I know, you keep it. Yeah. I said, okay, thank you, and took and came away. That's a different thing. But it is, you do one action. That one action of giving the 10 rupee, does it make you charitable? Huh? Or that one action of giving 1 lakh, can you say you have become charitable now? I see a lot of people who have given off, their, 10% of their salary. Like I saw in the paper, 2 lawyers have sent, 1 rupee to this one, and the bar council is planning to give them, award. For that 1 rupee they have donated. They have transferred, 1 rupee to that, Prime Minister Relief Fund. 1 rupee you give. Say, what are you doing, man? See, I don't care with reference to the one action. It is one action. Are you going to be defining that entire personality based on that one action? As though there is no other dimension. That is where this personality chart will help you. What we do here is we rip open that personality, these thoughts, and its application of your thoughts, sattva, rajas, tamas, into 7 different categories. 7 different categories classified under 3 sections: sattva, rajas, tamas. So you will have finally 21 squares. After the 21 squares, you can easily identify what is the strength of your personality and which is the weakness of your personality. The domains are beautifully analyzed in the Gita. Those who wants to have the reference, I say there are 2 books I can give you as a reference for you to check it out. One is in the Gita 18th chapter. It is there. This analysis. And also the better one would be to go through this Vedanta treatise. In this chapter 8, the last portion is this personality chart. So those who have the book, you can go through that in the number of classes. So every day the attempt is, we will be taking up one dimension of it. I'll just tell you what are the 7 dimensions of it. Knowledge, I'll just explain that tomorrow, when we go there. Now, having said 7, let me say that also. The 7 things. Now, knowledge, action, actor, steadfastness, intellect, happiness, renunciation. These are the 7 dimensions of your personality. In that, what is the expression? How does this sattva, rajas, tamas expresses? So, if you have the reference point, when you say I have a fault, you can have a reference to identify the fault and say, because of this difference is existing, or this is in alignment with what is being stated here. Therefore, this is the fault, this is the weakness, this is the strength. Otherwise, For you to be stating your weaknesses and strengths of your personality when I ask, you will give only based on the consequences of it. If anger pays you, you will say that is a strength, isn't it? Aggressive batting is the strength of Sehwag. Why? It paid. Many times Sehwag goes for a lofted shot and he gets out. The commentator says, what? Is this the way to bat? This is not the time to play your natural game. If he gets out, if he hits a six, what he will say? See, Sehwag cannot be stopped. You see, whatever the situation, he will play his natural game. That is Sehwag. If he hits a six, you appreciate. If he gets out, you criticize. Or on that basis, are we going to be analyzing what is my nature, what is my strength, what is my weakness? The reference point. Remember this. This scriptures give us the mirror. With that mirror in hand, what happens to you is the amendments, the corrections can be made accordingly. Therefore, you can define what you should be doing also. What sort of an effort that you have to put in to build your sattva or to work on your rajas or how to delete tamas will be totally different from the other person who is having a different dimension of weakness. That's where this analysis will help you to understand all these three. What is your spiritual status? It will also help you to recognize your strength and your weakness. Also, it will help you to divine a path for yourself. What is it that you have to do for your evolution? Is the idea. So we started the whole thing from what is personality? Personality being analyzed from various angles. Any analysis requires a reference point. The reference point for us for this analysis is evolution. If evolution, what is it? It is the recognition of myself, for which, why that has to be done? This three ignorance is there. That ignorance is expressing as the three thought temperaments, and the three thought temperaments were defining my character, defining my personality. Therefore, we are studying the three temperaments: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Right. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Hari Om.